Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, proof that Kirby survives climate change. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I'm joined as I am always joined by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. Mark, how's it going?
It's going great. Any day that is a Nintendo Direct day is a pretty good day.
Yeah, that's right. We've got a Nintendo Direct to talk about, so let's not dwell on the business up top. Speaking of the business up top, my copy of Sonic Forces, would you like to borrow it? You can certainly try. All you gotta do is email us, Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. I send you my copy of Sonic Forces. You play it for as long as you want. Or don't play, you just admire it on the shelf for as long as you want. There may be a copy of Untitled Goose Game in there. Who knows? You send it back. Doesn't cost you anything. It's the perfect borrowing program.
Another thing you can do is you can leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast. It helps us out a bunch. It helps grow the show. It helps grow the society we call Nintendo Cartridge Society.
At gmail.com.
No. But yeah, if you leave us a 5-star review on the US Apple Podcast Store, we'll give you a shout out because that's the place we check. But you can get a shout out no matter where you leave us a review. Just send us an email or hit us up on Twitter, and we'd love to give you a shout out. We genuinely really love and appreciate every review that we get.
And the last little call to action here is that we are, of course, preparing for our October is the month of Game & Watch. We are devoting most of our programming to Nintendo's original handheld system, the Game & Watch. If you have any experiences you want to relay to us, if you have any topics you would like us to discuss, I am slowly descending into just a well of obsession about Game & Watch. It's going to be a great time, but we would love to have your perspectives, your insights. So write into us. Let us know what you think of the Game & Watch. The games you used to play, the games you always wanted to play. Are you as frustrated as I am that you can't buy a Snoopy tennis for less than $300 right now? It's outrageous, Mark. All right, speaking of outrageous, let's get to the topic at hand. Let's break down the Nintendo Direct from today. Thursday, September 23rd, 3 o'clock, Nintendo Direct, 40 minutes of game and not game announcements from Nintendo.
There was quite a bit packed in that 40 minutes, too. It moved, which I appreciated.
Yes. And I would say that there's a lot in here that felt like, just broad strokes here, like we were getting updates.
Yeah, totally.
Update, checking in on things that we already know about, right? Some things that we know about in the very abstract, like a Super Mario Brothers movie, like a Bayonetta 3, even like a Splatoon 3, right? Like these are all things that we know in some capacity are coming down the pipeline. I would say very few big surprises of new stuff, with maybe the only exception being that Kirby thing.
Well, no, there's some story deck stuff, and
there's
I would say there's quite a bit new. Not necessarily anything earth-shattering, but quite a few things that had me sitting up at attention.
Sitting up and leaning forward and going, oh.
Yeah, basically.
No, that is true. I mean, and there are a lot of, obviously on the show we talk a lot about rumors and speculation based on information that we're getting here and there. And it's amazing how much some of that stuff is kind of right, but it's also very wrong, and you're just kind of narrowing in on what the actual truth is.
I have to admit, Patrick, I know that we're going to do this chronologically, and so we will get there.
Yeah.
But the Super Mario movie news has me a little bit shook.
I mean, me too. So should we just skip to it and then get it out of the way so that we don't? I mean, because it is genuinely one of the weirder, more upsetting Nintendo announcements I think I've ever seen.
I just don't know what to do with this information now that I
It's
have
like
it.
the vitality sensor almost, right? It's one of these things where you're like, oh, you're interested in what, Nintendo?
So I feel okay. We probably should talk about it because it has been.
We're in it already.
It is occupying so much of my brain right now.
Right. Let's get it
because all right. Well, let's just start at the beginning. And by the beginning, I mean the middle of this presentation when Miyamoto comes on screen and is like, "Hey, I have some news about the Super Mario animated movie to share."
Right. When this is like 30 minutes into a 40-minute presentation.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty deep in. Miyamoto comes in, kind of cuts off Koizumi, who's been hosting the whole time, doing a great job. Miyamoto sporting a new haircut. As
everybody's looking fresh.
Everyone's looking fresh. He's wearing a Mario shirt, looking great. And a blazer, which I guess is just his look now. So what he has to share is, sort of the stuff that we already knew that Chris Mill, what's his name?
Yeah, I'm blanking on it, but yeah, the guy from Illumination Entertainment,
right? That he's like their lead, like
overseeing it basically.
Right.
They're working closely with him in Illumination Entertainment, who you of course will know from like Despicable Me movies and Sing and that kind of stuff.
Right. And then we get the cast.
Well,
no, we get a release date.
First, we get release date. So first, they're easing us into this information.
Right.
Holiday 2022, specifically December 21st, 2022 in North America. So right before Christmas here, and then elsewhere, like Europe, Japan, etc. They'll announce the specific dates later.
And so far, this is all fine information.
Fine, great.
I would honestly say I don't care. I feel neither good nor bad about this information. It's totally fine. But then the cast drops.
We pivot, yes.
And it reads like a joke fan casting, right? Though, like, something that we would do on this show and then laugh about how bad it was.
Okay. Let's run down the cast.
Yes.
Starting with the big one. Chris Pratt is Mario.
Christopher Pratt is Mario. Now, Mark, you may wonder, is this Chris Pratt from 2007 somehow? No. It's Chris Pratt from now. It is modern day Chris Pratt.
I laugh because I just don't really know how else to feel.
I mean, okay. So, our personal feelings about Chris Pratt notwithstanding, he does an okay job in the Lego Movie. Like that's a voice acting gig, and he plays the lead in that. And like Emmett has the least personality of any character in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Also Charlie Day in that movie too, and in this movie as well. Anyway, so yeah, maybe if he just like sort of fades into the background as like the main character of this movie, it'll be okay. I'm just not wild about he's such a 2021 name, like he's the movie star of right now.
He is, in the sense where it's like 3 or 4 years ago, he like, or even 5 years ago, like he was kind of at his peak. I mean,
was he though? I feel like he's still approaching his peak.
Oh, see, I disagree. I feel like a lot of people now have the same reaction that we do when Chris Pratt's name gets brought up, where it's just like, I feel like personally he has worn out his goodwill. Is kind of on the downward slope of the goodwill that he had built up.
I mean, counterpoint, the Jurassic World movies make more money than anything.
Yeah, but nobody's showing up for Chris. Nobody's showing up for Chris Pratt.
Well,
people are showing up
probably
because
true.
It's Jurassic
because there are
World.
Dinosaurs. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that, I don't know. It like you're saying at the beginning. This just, the whole cast feels very much like fan casting.
Yeah, run them down.
Okay,
Mark.
Here we go. Anya Taylor-Joy as Peach, Charlie Day as Luigi, Jack Black as Bowser, Keegan-Michael Key as Toad, Seth Rogen is Donkey Kong, Kevin Michael Richardson is Kamek, Fred Armisen is Cranky Kong, and that Sebastian Maniscalco is Spike, who we previously talked about is a comedian that I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, same.
But he had mentioned that when he was on a podcast that he's playing Spike in the film. And they also make a point of saying that Charles Martinet is involved and appearing in surprise cameos within the movie. So Charles Martinet will be in the movie in some form.
But they're not. They are replacing him with Chris Pratt, Charlie Day and Jack Black.
Well,
right? And Keegan-Michael Key, because he also does Toad.
I feel like we kind of, when we had talked about this movie before, I feel like it was inevitable that it was going to end up this way, right?
Yes.
That it was going to end up a smorgasbord of celebrities that would be playing the main roles. And so I think that is not like particularly a surprise once it's laid out. There's just something about like in the abstract where you're like, yes, this is inevitable. And then to actually have it be announced and where it's like, oh, this is like written in permanent ink. There's no going back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it also is just like, you think about like, what is Bowser as played by Jack Black?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, that's not the character Bowser that I feel like I'm just going to have to think of these characters as not the characters I know. Like they're just going to be different.
And look, there's already a Super Mario Brothers movie. It's super weird.
Yeah.
Like it is also not the Mario characters that we really know. And I've seen a lot of bad movies, based on things that I like or thought I liked.
Sure.
And so, like, Miyamoto is excited for this. I'm willing to give it a shot, right?
I mean, I don't know how we don't give it a shot.
Well,
as long as we're still doing this podcast a year from now, I think we have to go see this movie.
No, I think for sure. But I just mean, like, sure, it may turn out to be great. My skepticism may not be warranted. But for whatever reason, it really it shook me. It cast a pall over the rest of I couldn't focus. I still cannot focus. The mind reels at this information.
Well, you know what it is? It's that every time we get announcements from Nintendo that are like confusing or whatever, it's like hard to see how Nintendo does like their creative business math, where it's just like, what are you guys doing over there? They're so strange. They'll put out games where you're like, I don't understand what the market for this is. And then it comes out and it kills and everyone loves it. And you're like, oh, okay. I guess like we just got to trust that Nintendo knows what they're doing.
Totally.
But with the Super Mario Brothers movie, it's like, oh yeah, I get all of this and I hate it. It's the opposite. There's no looking at this and being like, oh, I wonder who made this decision. I know, like I totally understand. This movie will make money.
I feel like we just don't we don't have any idea what this movie is actually going to be.
Yes.
What the premise is,
right.
What the take on the characters are, like, are they in the Mushroom Kingdom? Are they not in the Mushroom Kingdom? Like, I feel like this movie could be absolutely anything.
Yeah.
And so, but that being said, it's like, do I like Illumination Entertainment's movies? Generally speaking, no, I do not. Am I super excited about this casting? Offhand? No, not particularly.
No, not really.
And so, but I'm just trying to be a stone in the river. I'm just letting it wash over me. It's going to happen no matter what. So
well, sure. Okay. Let's all just lay down and die. Kirby will outlive us all, as we've all been wiped out by the Super Mario Brothers movie. So, something to note here is that Anya Taylor-Joy is the only actor that's been announced here who is not a comedian, right? Like everyone else is a comedic actor, or Keegan-Michael Key and Fred Armisen are sketch actors, like specifically. So like they are obviously going for, this could be worse, right? I don't see James Corden's name in here, right? Like I
no,
don't,
you're
I
right.
don't see
We
like,
definitely don't.
I don't see like Meryl Streep or like.
Although I will, yeah, that's such a good point. Or I do feel like there are a few characters that I don't want to put the curse of James Corden on this film.
Right.
But I'm just saying Yoshi hasn't been announced yet.
Look, Mark. Look. If what they're doing here is they're creating a series of comedic shorts about the Mario characters and it's stitched together in the form of a movie, and this is the cast, then maybe I'm okay with it. Like, maybe I'm okay with that.
I'm just saying, like, the only information we have about this movie...
Please don't give me James Corden.
The only information we have about this movie is that it exists.
Yeah.
It's coming out in holiday 2022, and we know the cast. We know
nothing
some of the
else.
cast.
Right.
We know nothing else. And so it's like, okay, like, I'm willing to see what it is. Like I said, I've seen a lot of bad movies made, like...
With Chris Pratt in them.
And this could just be another one.
That's true. That's true. This could just be another bad Chris Pratt movie. Okay,
Yeah.
Mark, do we have any further thoughts about the Super Mario Brothers movie, or can we put it to bed and talk about some video games?
I feel exorcised after talking about it. Like, we can put it away.
Yeah.
We have a whole year of it looming like the moon in Majora's Mask.
Oh God!
But until Impact, we
Right.
can continue our lives. So let's go all the way back to the beginning.
Okay,
when,
good.
When we are still in blissful ignorance.
Yes, in our
of the
salad
pain
days
that-
when we were
yeah.
green. Yeah. Also, we didn't have an opportunity to do like any predictions,
Right.
For this direct. But the possibility of talking about the Mario movie was so far outside of what I was expecting that like it just hitting that moment in the direct and the downshift to like here are casting announcements. It really threw
weird.
me for a loop.
It
really
was
threw me
weird
for
for
a loop.
sure.
Starting at the top, the cold open to the direct is a massive expansion to Monster Hunter Rise called Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, coming out in summer 2022. Seems like a cool. I mean, I guess we don't really know anything about it. It is an expansion for Monster Hunter Rise, a game which you and I know very little about.
Yeah.
Although it is on sale on the Nintendo eShop right now for $10 off. And earlier today, I was like, should I get into Monster Hunter Rise? Like, I can get it a little bit cheaper. Now, knowing that more content coming to it, like, maybe.
I'm personally am going to hold out until it's like $20.
Wow. You think it's going to get there?
I think it will eventually,
Okay,
for
alright.
sure. Yeah. But not much to say about Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. The trailer, it seemed cool.
It's hard to divine anything from it, really, right? We
Yeah.
see like the ruins of a castle and like a dragon flying over it. I know the dragon has a name. I don't care.
I don't think so. I'm assuming it's one of the new monsters that are like promised.
Yeah, but it will have a name.
It will have a name. Yes, that's fair. That's fair.
And when they reveal what that name is, I won't care then either.
Well, after the cold open,
Yes.
we're greeted by the shining face of Yoshiaki Koizumi. Always a pleasure to see. Also looking like he just got a haircut.
Yep.
Everybody's looking really good.
I gotta say, having Koizumi like more front and center ever since the Switch presentation has been great.
It
right?
has been great.
Like I know that he had been present in previous presentations, but I feel like he's just been like elevated to he's a face. He's like a main face.
I think so.
He does a good job.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I would be curious to know like how they choose who is going to lead the Nintendo Directs, because it's not always Koizumi, So, but after he gives us a welcome and a nice intro, the next thing up is Mario Party Superstars, previously announced, which we know is coming October 29th. And really the focus here is the 3 new boards that they want to introduce. Woody Woods, Yoshi's Tropical Island, and Horrorland.
And those join the previously announced Spaceland and Peach's Birthday Cake. They did mention a total of 7. I think they said 7 boards.
So
they said 7 something.
So I wasn't sure. I thought that it was 5 boards.
Yeah.
Which means we now know all of the boards.
Uh-huh.
And then there's a separate like multiplayer aspect, which is just Mount Minigames, which is minigame only courses. And I think it's 7 courses.
Got it.
So
got
5
it,
maps, or 5 boards, 7 courses on
for
Mount
7
Minimaps.
brothers.
Yes.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So I mean, yeah, this was just like a further look at Mario Party Superstars, sort of reiterating that the online modes are available for everything, which is a fun reminder that like this may be a functional Mario Party game that you can actually play with your friends who don't live in your house. But yeah, again, this is sort of just like, not that Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak is exactly this, but this is just us, like, again, getting more information about something we know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. But that quickly changed
Yes.
with the next announcement.
Voice of Cards, The Isle Dragon Roars, which is a new RPG that is based entirely in cards.
Yeah. So it looks pretty. I think it looks interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'll ever play it, but it looks really cool. So they make a point of everything is represented as cards. So it's essentially a tabletop card game, like rendered as a video game. So the characters are cards, the locations are cards, the
even
stores
like
are
individual
cards.
squares that you move on are cards.
Yeah.
Which I feel like that's the part of it that feels like too far or too generic to me. Like I can get into all the characters are cards, all of the moves are cards, all of the items, like all that stuff, cards. I get it. Fun, exciting. But then that you're like moving around a map that is like just made up of like cards.
I kind of like it.
You kind of like it?
I kind of like it. I think it's what makes it
You're never going to play it.
I'm never going to play it. But I found it intriguing. The creative director for it is Nier's Yoko Taro. And it comes out really soon, October 28th. Pre-orders and a demo are available today. I think I'll probably check out the demo.
Yeah.
I just think it's a really intriguing idea, and I like that there's these like smaller scale RPGs that are a little experimental, a little bit different, that are coming out. I think there's totally room for stuff like this.
And this is the first like kind of substantial showing in the direct from Square Enix, who gets a lot of play throughout this presentation.
Yeah, totally.
Next up is Disco Elysium, the final cut, which is coming to Switch on, digitally at any rate, on October 12th, with a physical release coming early 2022. Disco Elysium has been available on all other platforms for a while, and is like a hard-boiled detective. You have psychic powers, mystery,
like narrative
RPG.
game. Yeah. That is really well regarded. I haven't played it on any other platforms. I don't know. This is one of those games where it's like, I forgot this was coming to Switch. Thank you for the reminder. It's going to go on my wish list. But there's just like, I left this Nintendo Direct feeling overwhelmed by the amount of games that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Like, I'm interested in Voice of Cards, The Isle Dragon Roars, but I know that like I'm not going to have time to play this game
unless
right?
a demo hooks you.
Right. But same with like Disco Elysium, where it's like, ooh, like I'm so intrigued by this, and there are other games where I'm like, oh, this is intriguing. I would love to play this, but the realities of like the time that I have to play video games maybe won't allow it. But yes, I would love to find one or two of these that like I can sink my teeth into.
Speaking of that very same phenomenon, the next up is Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity, going into the second wave of the expansion pass, which is called Guardian of Remembrance. We see some like character beats, some story moments. It's one of these things where like there's just kind of too much going on to really like wrap your head around.
Especially if like I feel like if you are really into this game, maybe you look at this trailer and be like, oh, look at all this new different stuff.
Right.
But as somebody who casually played the base game, I look at it and be like,
casually played half of the base game.
I look at it and I'm like, is this new? Was that different? Like,
right.
What? So I just don't grasp the story implications or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it is. The second wave comes out October 29th, which now marks the third like late October announcement or late October release that we're seeing in this direct. It's a lot. There's a lot of stuff happening like right at the end of October.
Yeah. Yes, and there's going to be even more.
Yes.
Pretty soon. Up next is Chocobo GP.
Okay, now Square Enix returns here, right? And
giving the people what they want.
And I know there has been a Chocobo racer game in the past, but I feel like in the late 90s, right? Or like an original PlayStation release, possibly PlayStation 2. This game just looks like Mario Kart with like chibi Final Fantasy characters.
With Final Fantasy specifics laid over it. I laughed through this entire trailer.
Yes.
I think it's such a funny sure, yeah, why not give Final Fantasy kart racer game?
100%. I love that they're like, you can play as classic Final Fantasy characters like the Chocobo or Gilgamesh.
That's what I want.
What?
That is the kind of like craziness that I live for, that I crave in these games. So the items that you can get and attack with are Magicites.
A reference to Final Fantasy VI.
Yep, and you capture, you can like build up by capturing multiple Magicites of the same element to increase the attack power. And the attack power, it's all based on classic Final Fantasy spells. There's fire, there's ice, there's all that kind of stuff.
And then there's fire, there's blizzard. So it's like fire, Firaga.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like, I love that sort of like progression in item collection that's very Diddy Kong Racing. It's very Mod Nation Racers, but not really Mario Karty. Right?
No. And the other thing that's different is that each racer has special abilities. So that's also something that's different from Mario Kart, but you do see in other racers of its ilk. It features local and online multiplayer, up to 64 players in a 8 against 8, like an 8x8 tournament. It's a Switch exclusive coming in 2022. Chocobo GP. Look for it in your rearview mirror because it's coming up fast.
Do you think there's any chance that this used to be Star Fox Grand Prix? And then they're like, oh no, we got to team up with Square Enix now to change this thing. Honestly, I sort of love this announcement.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
This is a game that I'm going to absolutely play, but I'll check reviews. But if it plays as much like Mario Kart as it looks like Mario Kart, like I'm 100% in.
Yeah, I mean, you also really liked Mod Nation Racers.
Loved
right?
it, yeah.
So even if it played more like Diddy Kong Racing or Mod Nation Racers, might be worth picking up.
I mean, all of those games play pretty similarly,
like Mario Kart.
But I mean, in a way that like Sega and Sonic All Star Racer, like that's different, or like Crash Team Racing, that those games are all like heavier and a little bit more like racing focused. If this is just like good silly fun, like I'm totally in.
Up next was Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, gets a mention here. I think some of us were expecting that we would get the final character reveal today, but we do not. Nintendo adds another thing for us to look forward to in October, where Koizumi says that the final Mr. Sakurai Presents video will be on October 5th at 7 a.m. Pacific time, wherein we will get the final character reveal for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and Sakurai will show off gameplay as well. And when they mean final, they mean final, because he specifically calls out that this is the last presentation on Super Smash Bros. Ultimate.
For the last character for a game that originally came out 3 years ago. Yeah, I mean, it seems like they're putting out the language to very specifically be like, there is no Season Pass number 3. This is it. This is all we're doing. And I think it's interesting. Like, I sort of expected that they would announce the character and do like a trailer for then Sakurai to blow it out a couple weeks later, and with the character to launch later that day.
I completely agree, and I feel like part of that is to like relieve the pressure in the cabin a little bit.
Yes,
because because it's the last character. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of emotion riding on it, right? Because everybody has their favorites that they're hoping to get in, and this is kind of like the last chance. So it feels bold to do it, to blow it all out on one day.
That is bold, but it's also sort of like they're making a point that this is the last one, right? And so the last one has to be a big one. It has to both like break the news and break down the character.
That's what I mean. It's so much like pressure. It's so much like build up.
Yeah. Well, and it just like, you're right. Everyone has their favorite. Everyone's going to be disappointed when it's Stanley the Bugman from Donkey Kong 3.
Oh, no. Everyone except for one little boy named Patrick Eller.
That's right. I'll be so happy.
Yeah.
Look, we all know that Stanley the Bugman only appears in 3 video games, right? Their Greenhouse for the
we're just
Game &
learning
Watch.
this. Here's a little preview of Game & Watch.
Right. Donkey Kong 3 on Game & Watch and Donkey Kong 3 on arcades and NES.
Yeah, so we didn't know 2 of those until just like a little bit ago.
Right, and you haven't even heard us make those discoveries yet. Mark, do you have any insight, any hopes,
I couldn't even begin to guess.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't even begin, and with all of these announcements, there are people who are like happy about it. There are people who are really upset about it. So in that way,
but who cares about?
No, but that's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like in that way, it's like, how is this one different than any of the others?
Right. Do you think there will be any like poetry to it? Do you think there will be anything that feels final about it? Anything that feels like closing the door? Like, because there are some characters, like if it's Sora from Kingdom Hearts, if it's Waluigi, those are punctuation, like that's.
Yeah, they are, but at the same time, I don't know. I feel like what makes this one difficult is all the ceremony around it. You want it to mean something, potentially. Yeah. And it's like, what sort of character that isn't in the game currently could be added
something
that would add like some sort of like gravity to the proceedings. And maybe that is completely the wrong reading of the room.
Totally.
And maybe they're just like, no, whatever, we don't care. Like, it's some...
No, it's Emmy from Metroid Dread.
Right, yeah, exactly. Where they're just like, nope, like, maybe they are not approaching it that way.
Yeah.
But I feel like by making it this, like, special thing that, you know, they're holding until October, it kind of... That's how I'm, like, reading it. But that could totally be completely misguided.
I love it, man. I love the mystery. I love
Yeah.
that we like almost literally know nothing about what this character could be or even should be.
Yeah,
Like,
I would go as far as to say we know nothing.
we know nothing,
Yeah.
Mark. All right, so then after it's expanded on that we know nothing, we get Kirby and the Forgotten Land, which I guess was leaked a little bit earlier in the day when Nintendo posted it on one of their own websites. But it is a 3D platformer starring Kirby, and he's wandering around what appears to be the world from The Last of Us, but with just more bright colors.
It kind of, it gave me some, because it was like on the coast and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
It reminded me a little bit of like Sonic Adventures.
Sure.
Like the overworld, you're running
Yeah.
around in there. For whatever reason, I got real like Sonic Adventure vibes
Oh, that's interesting.
from the game. But yeah, Kirby washes up on the shore of this kind of mysterious island, or I guess I don't know that it's an island. And the world seems abandoned and overgrown. Kirby can run around in full 3D.
Yep, he can fly around in full 3D. Well, the world does appear to feature a civilization that has been stomped out. It does not. It's not like a grim version of that.
No.
Like the overgrown mall actually looks like vibrant and alive because of all the like greenery in there. So it is a classically like Nintendo's so good at nailing whatever kind of aesthetic they're going for, like picking one and like doing something specific that no one else is doing, and like bright bubbly apocalypse is like the niche that Kirby is like wiggled himself into.
Totally.
And like they're just expressing it so cleanly and so purely.
It really is like the role Kirby was born to play.
Absolutely. This comes out spring 2022, which honestly not that far away.
No. It's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of a big deal, I think. It feels like a fairly large either reinvention or a fairly large experiment as to what Kirby could be, especially coming from like Star Allies, which was very much like, hey, this is Kirby.
Right.
Like classic side-scrolling Kirby, but now it's on a console after it'd been away for a while, and we've added multiplayer. And so it's just like, okay, this is what I expect from a Kirby game. And this feels like a fairly big pivot.
Yeah, well, we saw so early that like here is what a Zelda game on Switch can be. Here's what a Mario game on Switch can be. And then Kirby came out and it was just like, this is a Kirby game. And I feel like this at least has the potential to be what a Kirby game on Switch could be, you know?
Yep. Also, just another, thing coming out in 2022.
Yeah.
Nintendo's 2022 is already looking
pretty good.
Pretty good.
Next up, we got Animal Crossing New Horizons. There is new content coming in November, including, but not limited to, The Roost, which is the coffee house. And that's all very exciting. We will get more information about this sometime in October. They were not, unlike the Mr. Sakurai Presents, they did not give us a firm date when we would learn more about this content.
Yeah, that's right. Although they do promise that it is going to be an Animal Crossing New Horizons Direct that happens next month. So it's not like a Twitter reveal or anything like that. This was what found in the code. What do you call that?
Data mining.
Data mine. Yeah, a few...
Data mined?
Data mined.
I think both work.
A while ago.
I guess data mine is where Brent Spiner has to go.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly. So this was wait. Now data mined.
Here we go.
A while ago, and it looks like it is part of the museum, so not like it's a discrete own like standalone thing. But two things we know. The Direct is in October. The new free content is coming in November, and they teased more to come after that.
Yeah. Okay. So they teased more to come after that. I wonder. I mean, they've already previously in this Direct used the phrase "massive expansion," and they did not use that here.
No.
is just adding Brewster's Coffee House enough to like bring people back to Animal Crossing in like a meaningful way?
In all of the updates, there's always been something more to go like with it, right?
Yeah.
It's so I expect it will be more. Will it be enough to have people come back? I don't know. I mean, I think the big difference between the massive, update that Monster Hunter Rises promised and this one for Animal Crossing New Horizons is Monster Hunter Rises paid DLC, right? And this is going to be free content. So
yeah, but Animal Crossing has already made like 5 times as much money as as that Monster Hunter game, right? Like they've sold so many copies of that game.
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't.
Is your point that they shouldn't, that if they were going to do a massive update for New Horizons, that they shouldn't charge for it? Because
there's no should here, but just that they have the resources from what the game brought in to continue to support it in a meaningful way if they wanted to.
I mean, you could say that about pretty much any game. Like, I don't think Capcom's like really scraping the bottom of the piggy bank to make more.
No, but they budget things out. They have profit and loss that they're looking at and saying that this game. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. But no, I think to your point, is this going to be, to your point, this doesn't seem like a welcome amiibo sort of like big update refresh that New Leaf got. Although could be wrong, Yeah. We don't really know anything at this point.
But we will know more sometime in October.
What a theme for this direct, where it's like
we'll tell you later.
Lots of new announcements, lots of new stuff that we know is coming, but very minimal details.
Yeah, and everything in October.
Yeah.
We're getting 2 Nintendo Directs in October. One is the Mr. Sakurai Presents, and the other one is this Animal Crossing thing. We're getting Metroid Dread. We're getting all these other games and updates that we mentioned earlier. It's a packed month.
Yeah, plus there's more that, again, we'll get to in just a second.
That's right. Next up was Mario Golf Super Rush is getting more stuff today, a second free update, adding the playable characters of Koopa Troopa, and Ninji, both playable characters. 2 new courses. It's free. It's available right now.
The next announcement is Disney Magical World 2 Enchanted Edition is coming to Switch from Bandai Namco. It promises to include all the DLC for the Nintendo 3DS version of Disney Magical World 2 and comes out this holiday.
What's the gameplay in these games?
I don't have any idea.
It looks as though you are controlling a off-brand me, and you're just interacting with, or at least present for various scenes in Disney movies.
It feels like it must be some sort of like town builder or something like that. Must be like the gameplay.
Yeah. Looks very strange. There's no way either of us are going to play it. Next up is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, which is coming on November 11th to the Nintendo Switch. Kind of a weird announcement, as Sony just like last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, announced a remake of Knights of the Old Republic for exclusive to PlayStation 5. And if you want to just play it instead on your Switch, the old version, you can, I guess.
Yeah. I have actually, surprisingly, because I'm a huge Star Wars fan, have never played this game. I own it on iOS, but that's such a weird way to try to play that game.
Right. I have also never played Knights of the Old Republic. I don't necessarily feel like I'm not really into the sort of like Western style RPGs as it is. So it doesn't really feel like my speed, even though it is Star Wars, which is very much
an RPG.
And an RPG.
Yeah, it's always tempted me. I feel like, as with some of these other Aspire ports, I might end up picking it up. Don't know how much time I'll actually put into it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Up next was Dying Light 2 Stay Human Cloud version. We're getting another cloud version of a game that's coming to platforms that what am I trying to say?
That can run it natively?
Yeah, exactly. So it's releasing February 4th, 2022, plus a free demo is going to come out that day. That's about 2 months after it's coming out on other platforms.
Oh, it's coming out like December? Okay.
Mm-hmm. But also the original Dying Light Platinum Edition, which I think was announced at the E3 Nintendo Direct. I feel like we knew this was coming.
I do not remember.
But it has a firm release date of October 19th. October continues to be just a crazy packed month for Nintendo.
Is that also a cloud version?
No, I think because that game is
the original Dying Light. Is
I think so. They didn't call it out as a cloud version. I played it on the PlayStation 4, and really enjoyed my time with it. I played it in co-op, and I had a blast.
So that's I wonder how meaty the demo for this is going to be, or if it's sort of just like, here's what the cloud play experience
That's
is
what it
like.
was for Control, right? Where like part of it is a demo of the game, but part of it is just like, hey, can your internet handle this?
Right. Can your internet handle this? Can you deal with the latency? This is what you're getting
When
before
I
you buy
played
it.
Control, and like, let me restate that. When I
Yeah.
played the demo for
There we
Control,
go.
I thought like latency was not noticeable to me. And so, but yeah, definitely depending on your internet connection, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Your mileage will vary.
Next up, we got the game formerly known as Project Triangle Strategy, now just selling itself as Triangle Strategy.
I laughed. I love it.
Yeah, it's very
I
funny.
live, laugh, loved.
Why would we? I mean, first of all, Square Enix, stop naming your like your code names. If you say project, just drop the project. You don't need it.
I like it. I think
You
it's
think it's
funny.
funny?
I think it's funny because it's like they're like, we're not really gonna name it this. They're like, I know we did it before, but you can trust us this time. It's this time we mean it. We're not gonna name it just Triangle Strategy.
What there's the PlayStation game that's Square Enix. It's now called Forspoken. What was it called before?
Oh, I don't remember. Was it like?
It wasn't Project Forspoken.
No, it was like Project Ares or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Well, we're not going to remember that. But so that's one that they did change. I wonder if Nintendo's just like, no, you've started with this branding, you continue with this branding.
I think it's just easier, right?
Yeah.
You've like, I mean, it's not like Octopath Traveler rolled off the tongue, but sure, Triangle Strategy, I know what it is.
Yeah, whatever. Well, and also if we're talking about Square Enix naming things like this, of all of the various ills that they can commit with their naming conventions, just calling something Triangle Strategy is like at least right down the barrel.
Yeah,
you know
very
what
straightforward.
So we saw more of this, and they really laid into the idea that they took the notes from people that played the demo and gave their feedback. They called out specifically difficulty settings, that there are more gameplay options, full camera control, and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, it's basically all the things that you can tweak in a video game. They're like, hey, we tweaked them. So if you want more details, they direct you to go to Nintendo.com, where I'm sure that they kind of like run through it all in specifics. But for someone who played, I can't even remember if I played the demo, but I didn't submit any feedback. So like it would be meaningless to me, right? Like I don't really have anything to compare it to.
Right. But we do know that this is the path they went down with both Octopath Traveler and Bravely Default 2. And both of those games are improved because of the sort of fan feedback. So it's cool that this is also getting that.
Also, we've learned that the release date is March 4th, 2022. Another early 2022 release on Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, pretty cool, frankly. Like when you think about that the Pokemon Legends Arceus is coming out in January. This is coming out in March. And then Kirby is coming out in spring. That's probably like April or May. Yeah, it means that there's like something big coming to Switch. Not every month, but pretty regularly in the new year. Next up is Metroid Dread, which is a game that we know is coming. It's 2 weeks away. It does seem like how could they do a presentation and not mention this game?
Totally.
But it's also kind of like, all right, guys. So like,
was this just the most recent story trailer that they released?
I don't
for
know.
The game?
I don't know.
It felt very similar, but my favorite part is that they're like in like the narrator for these Metroid Dread trailers has a very specific voice.
Yeah.
And so for her to be like, and go to Metroid.Nintendo.com, it just really made me laugh.
Right.
I loved it. I really loved it.
They were like specifically pimping out the like Dread files or whatever they're called. And I've been kind of avoiding them just because like I'm sold on the game already.
Right.
So I'll experience it when it happens in the game.
Yeah, and for that reason, I feel like it's good that we didn't get a big blowout because it's like 2 weeks away at this point.
Yeah.
Nintendo's all in on it. I am so excited for this game. It looks amazing. Like aesthetically, I'm just so into it.
Mark, let's pivot now to Nintendo Switch Online and to, I don't know, predictions being like 1/3 right. I don't know what percentage of correctness do you think the like collective internet had on this?
Yeah, I mean, impossible to know because first of all, like rumors coming from different sources,
Right.
and then also who knows what'll happen next month when we get the
Totally.
full blowout. But what we learned today is that there's a new membership plan coming for Nintendo Switch Online called Nintendo Switch Online Plus Expansion Pack.
Which will cost more
Yes.
money. You can upgrade your current Nintendo Switch Online subscription to the Nintendo Switch Online Plus Expansion Pack subscription. No word yet on what that will cost. Did they give a date for when they're going to blow it out?
No, they just said that it is going to be released, or it's going to become available in late October.
Okay,
and so
another late October.
Another late October. So sometime in October. This to me feels like doesn't necessarily need like a direct, like you could Twitter drop this information,
totally.
and the audience will find it. So not a specific date. We just know that it's coming later in October. But really, that gives them 4 weeks to like get this information out there. So we're not going to be hanging for a long time. So
what do you get with the expansion pack, Mark?
You get Nintendo 64 games, a selection of Nintendo 64 games on Switch Online, and you get a selection of Sega Genesis games.
Which is the real head scratcher. Sega Genesis, famously not a Nintendo console.
Yeah, really interesting that this is the partnership they make.
Can you, like, if you could project your consciousness back 30 years and say, you'll be playing these Genesis games on a Nintendo system in the future.
It's just
so wild.
It is so wild. I mean, the nail has been in the coffin for the console wars between Sega and Nintendo for like more than 20 years at this point. And yet, is that right? Don't check my math. Nobody check my math.
Because the Dreamcast came out September 9th, 1999. We all know this. It's also the day of the VMAs that year. So yeah, probably by 2 years later, the Dreamcast was dead and in the ground. I think that's probably right.
So it's not like this is not like earth-shattering news like Mario and Sonic showing up in a video game together, but there is something that was still kind of like, about it.
Yeah, well, and like, because we've also seen Genesis games appear on virtual consoles before, along with like TurboGrafx games and stuff like that. So it's not wholly uncharted territory. It does seem weird that Nintendo can be like, because considering how much they lean on their first party releases for the other platforms, that then they obviously have no first party releases for Genesis, but they're like, somehow we talked to whoever we need to at Sega, at Konami. That's most of it, right? Sega, Konami, Sega. Yeah, it's all Sega and Konami, I think.
Yeah.
And got the ability to stream these games for, and maybe that's why it has to be an added cost, is that they have to like pay those companies to run those games.
Maybe, but the fact that like Nintendo 64 games are included in it just makes me think that Nintendo sees an opportunity, because right now a Nintendo Switch Online subscription is $20 a year, which is
almost nothing.
Not that much.
Right.
And I'm guessing that this is going to be $30 a year. That's my guess. Is they're gonna ask for $10 more.
Still, frankly, almost nothing.
I think so too.
It's less than $3 a month. Less than $3 a month.
Yeah. So the Sega Genesis games, for me, it was a surprise, but I never owned a Sega Genesis. Like so it's a console that like I think it's cool that those games are coming. There aren't like games on this list that I'm like super looking forward to replaying or anything.
Well, to that point, let's just run through them real fast, just so we know what they are and they're out of the
Genesis games.
Yeah,
yeah.
So Castlevania Bloodlines, Contra Hardcore, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, which is basically just Puyo Puyo. Echo the Dolphin, Golden Axe, Gunstar Heroes, Musha, Phantasy Star 4, Rise Star, Shining Force, Shinobi 3, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Streets of Rage, and Strider. Some bangers in there, like some
for sure,
some genuinely good games. I guess Strider is a Capcom game, so there are a couple other companies represented there.
I also feel like the other thing with the Genesis games is that they are easily attainable elsewhere.
True, but like you would have to buy like Sega collections to play them.
Yeah, for sure. But like Nintendo 64 games are this weird commodity that difficult to play on modern hardware in a way that just Sega games aren't, because they are much more open to licensing their games and putting them in collections and all that kind of stuff.
Now I think it's important here to when we move over to the Nintendo 64 games, there's a set of launch games and then like some others promised for the future. I don't believe we had any Genesis games promised for the future.
Yeah, that's true. They didn't call it out like specifically like they did
Right.
Nintendo 64, where they're like, and here are other like specific games that are coming. But you're right. I don't think for Genesis they mentioned additional games coming at all.
Right. So this lineup of like 12 games, whatever, may be it for the Genesis.
Mm-hmm.
The Nintendo 64.
So for the launch games, it's Super Mario 64, Mario Kart 64, Star Fox 64, Yoshi's Story, Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, Win Back Covert Operations, a game that I'm not familiar with at all.
Neither.
Mario Tennis, Dr. Mario 64, and Sin and Punishment.
Now, Sin and Punishment not previously available until like the
Wii Virtual
release,
Console, yeah.
But the rest of them are all North American releases, so like games that we're all familiar with the exception of this Win Back Covert Operations. Is not a game that flew under my radar. I don't really even know what it is.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it really at all.
Some real bangers here, though. Super Mario 64, Star Fox 64, Yoshi's Story, and Ocarina of Time are all huge.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the stuff, a lot of like the ones that you would kind of like want/expect. Interesting that Super Mario 64 is on here. I'm assuming it's going to be like hold faithful to the Nintendo 64 release, different from the version that we saw in Super Mario 3D All-Stars.
Yeah.
That
what was different about it? It wasn't widescreen.
Some of the frame rate was improved and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I wonder like if any of the like sort of technical limitations of the Nintendo 64 are being smoothed over here, or if they're just being represented
right
as they would have been.
If it's like a faithful emulation.
Yeah.
For me, I'm excited about this. Like, I am excited to have access to some of these games. Star Fox 64, Mario Kart 64, being able to play Ocarina of Time on my Switch. I'm excited about all of this.
Yeah.
The later ones, there are a few in there that have me very excited. So the games they promise would be coming later are Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask, Mario Golf, the original Pokemon Snap, F-Zero X, Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards, and the two that I'm way pumped to see here.
Earth-shattering.
Paper Mario and Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah, I mean, just on Monday, you said that you would do terrible things for access to Paper Mario.
And all I'm going to have to do is pay like $10 or $15 more
a year. Yes. Yeah, and the fact that Banjo-Kazooie, that's another, as we were having this conversation last time, that I was like, they're not going to be able to get Banjo-Kazooie on there. Psych, they are.
Also, I mean, awesome. So excited. Banjo-Kazooie also in Smash Brothers. There's some sort of relationship there.
Yeah, well, and there's obviously the relationship there of it appearing on Nintendo 64 in the first place. But yeah, I mean, just absolutely wild, very exciting to have all of these games coming to Switch. I hope that's not the end of their lineup of games. Although it does kind of start to reach the end of games I'm interested in.
It's almost like at that point I would have to like go back through the Nintendo 64 library, like I mentioned on Monday, where it's like, or Tuesday, where it's like, oh yeah, put the Castlevania games on here. You know what I mean?
Donkey Kong 64.
Turok.
No Turok. Get Turok. Turok's already been re-released on Switch. Donkey Kong 64 and Diddy Kong Racing.
Yeah.
Like those are the two big boys for me.
Interestingly, so 4 people can play select games locally or online, which is pretty cool. Support for 4 people. The previous releases on Nintendo Switch Online for the NES and Super Nintendo, every game you could play in some form online, right? Like either asynchronously or like somebody could watch you play and then they applaud when you do something cool or something. I wonder if that is still the case here.
I think that's probably just what they mean. Yeah, and they didn't want to say that every game is 4-player.
Oh, sure.
Like, Mario 64 is a single-player game, whatever.
So the other thing we know is that it's coming in late October.
Like, October, baby! October!
Like you mentioned, Patrick, its existing plans can upgrade. And the release date and pricing are going to be revealed at a later date. They'll be announced later. But there was one more thing to go along with this, and that is that Nintendo is releasing Nintendo 64 controllers,
which we expected,
and Genesis wireless controllers,
which is outrageous. It is the classic 3-button Genesis layout, not the 6-button. I know people like those XYZ buttons, but they will not be here on this controller. They're $50 each. Obviously, they're purchased through Nintendo's website, and you have to be a Nintendo Switch Online subscriber to get them.
But you can be a subscriber of any tier, which they call out. You don't have to be a plus expansion pack subscriber in order to get these.
But weird because there's not application for the NES or Super NES controllers outside of those apps. Like you can't use the NES controller on your Switch for other games. So I doubt you'd be able to use the Nintendo 64 or the Genesis controller on like any other game if
Probably
you're not subscribed to it.
But
yeah.
like people might just want them as collector items, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep.
But the fact that they are going to be available to everybody makes me wonder if, and they'll be easier to obtain. Hopefully, I mean, I guess that's always a fool's hope with Nintendo.
Yeah.
But with both the NES controllers and the Super Nintendo controllers, there was a while where they were difficult to obtain.
Yeah. Did you ever get the Super NES controllers?
I did end up getting the Super
You
NES
did?
controllers.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
I never did. I have the NES controllers, and then I've got the Super NES from the
Oh yeah, the classic
edition. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also have regular old Super Nintendo controllers. So like I just have too many Super Nintendo controllers in the house. And they are all for specific machines.
These are also going to be $10 more than those Super Nintendo controllers were. Those were
Really?
$39.99.
Okay.
These are $49.99. No word yet on if like Rumble is included in the Nintendo 64
I
one.
didn't see the Rumble pack. I did not see the Rumble
But
pack.
maybe it's internal, or more likely is probably not included at all.
Here's the thing. Seeing that box, knowing that these games are coming, I kind of want it.
Oh my
now.
gosh, I'm so excited. Yeah, I 100% am going to buy them. I cannot wait.
Which do you think will be harder to get a hold of, the Nintendo 64 or the Genesis controllers?
I think the Nintendo 64
Yeah,
one.
hands down. All right, then we pivot out of services to.
One more
yes.
thing I wanted to talk about on this is another big part of another rumor that was floating around in the ether around the same time, because like the N64 stuff kind of snuck up on us last week, but
from the controller FCC filing.
Yes,
Yeah.
but before that, there were rumors that multiple sources confirmed that Game Boy games and Game Boy Color games would be coming to Nintendo Switch Online, and nary a peep about those today.
Yeah, no mention of Game Boy.
I'm wonder if we will hear more in October, where it's going to be like, here's the new stuff, but also for existing subscribers, here's like Game Boy and Game Boy Color games.
Yeah, I think that is possible. I think they would actually let that rest a little bit to drive people to the new service, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't really want to add more stuff to the existing service. Well, also, you know what I mean? Like, if you're improving both levels, I think people will probably stay on.
You want to give people as much incentive as possible to have people upgrade.
Right.
But just weird that those rumors came in so like hot and heavy.
Yeah.
And with multiple people being very confident, but that has happened. Time and time before as well.
Right, totally. Where's that Donkey Kong game being developed by Nintendo R&D 1?
I mean, where's like Pokemon Stars? Where's
exactly. Where's Star Fox Grand Prix?
Yes.
All of these things.
Yeah.
Yes. Obviously, Star Fox Grand Prix became Chocobo GP.
Metroid Prime Trilogy. Like so it would not be the first time that like these rumors have bubbled up and everybody gloms onto them and then nothing ends up coming of it.
Yeah, but still sort of a weird thing that like, that seemed reasonable, if nothing else. But all of the problems with bringing Game Boy games over to HD console, we can just forget about all that now and deal with Genesis and
yeah. Well, I agree with you, Patrick, that I think it is still possible, but maybe not probable anymore.
Yeah. What do you make of the? It's obviously something that we're both like, oh yeah, I'll do that. I'll subscribe to the expansion pack. There are obviously other libraries that they can and should add to this thing. Do we get like a second expansion pack? Like how big and how ungainly does this subscription service get?
I think with something like this, it's hard to start doing like 3 tiers.
But they okay, go ahead.
I mean, just like historically, right, with these, we have seen the base, we've seen Xbox Live, we've seen Xbox Live Gold.
Right.
We have seen, like you get Hulu with commercials or you get Hulu without commercials.
Right.
It feels, and I mean, maybe 3 years down the line they'll do something else, but it feels unlikely to me in the short term. It feels unlikely to me. I think we've, other than Game Boy games and I mean, knock on wood, GBA games, but I feel like we're hitting the limit of what systems are going to show up on here. And the fact that it is Genesis games I think is really interesting. Why not GBA game? Why not something from Nintendo's own library to go to a third party? I think is really curious.
Yeah, and it sort of makes me wonder, or makes me think that they will monetize those other libraries in addition to what we're seeing here, and maybe even like we'll just start breaking it out like by if you just like go into like a little a menu when you're subscribing, you just click off the consoles you're interested in. Maybe that would be a better way to manage all this.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's exciting to get this new stuff, but it is also kind of like, oh, I feel like we've reached the end of something here. Like, I don't really anticipate getting more. I guess it opens the door to third-party systems, but
hey, you got to play Bonk somewhere, right? All right, now we're done with Nintendo Switch
Now
Online?
we're done with Nintendo Switch Online.
Next, we started getting some like collections, the Shadowrun trilogy. Mark, I don't even know what this is.
So I didn't either. So I looked it up.
Yeah, great.
The Shadowrun trilogy is coming in 2022. Shadowrun is a sci-fi tabletop role-playing game, and this trilogy includes Shadowrun Returns, Shadowrun Dragonfall Director's Cut, and Shadowrun Hong Kong Extended Edition. The trilogy, these trilogy of games is already available on PC, but I think it's taking like these classic RPGs and bringing them to Switch.
And then next up was the much rumored Castlevania Advance Collection, which includes 4 games, not 3. Which is Circle of the Moon, Harmony of Dissonance, Aria of Sorrow, and Dracula X, which is an adaptation of Rondo of Blood for the Super NES. It looks like it has all of these same fun features that the other Castlevania collection had, including rewind, quick save, all the regional variations, galleries, and stuff like that. And guess what? It's available right now.
Very excited.
I feel like this is I go home and I buy it right away.
100%. 100%.
That's very exciting. I've not played any of these games, even though they have very high reputations, especially the ones that were on GBA.
The only thing that makes me a tiny bit sad is we don't have an answer to how are we going to preserve these DS iterations of Castlevania, right?
Right.
Because this is just the Game Boy Advance ones plus Dracula X, which was the adaptation of Rondo of Blood for Super Nintendo, and so all kind of that like same aesthetic,
right?
But we have these DS games out there that I'm hoping someday somehow are going to be preserved, and I was hoping against hope they would show up here. It makes sense that they didn't, but that is a question that has not yet been answered by anybody. Is how are we going to do this?
Yeah, but I mean, I think that just knowing how Capcom or Konami is treating the Castlevania games, this is now the second like robust collection of games that they've put out. Why would they stop?
Yep, totally.
I mean, they would stop because people don't buy them. I guess that's one reason. But people will.
Yeah. Up next was another surprise from Square Enix, Actraiser Renaissance. It is an HD remaster of Actraiser, I would say like fan favorite Super Nintendo game, one that I only became familiar with in the past maybe like 10 years as people have dove into retro games and kind of pulled up interesting ones for people to look at. Actraiser is broken up into 2 parts. There's like a side-scrolling action game, and then you pivot to like a world-building like simulator. It has a really good reputation. The music's supposed to be amazing. The HD remaster introduces new stages and boss battles, and another one that's available today. Speaking of available today, Deltarune Chapter 2. I guess it's been available for a couple days, right? But the first chapter was released for free like a year ago, and now this is a free update to it. That is the second chapter. This is from Toby Fox, the creator of Undertale, and is a similar, classic JRPG style game with sort of a different relationship to violence and combat. I enjoyed what I played of Chapter 1, and seeing this like little sizzle reel of Chapter 2 got me excited to go back to it. The music was so good.
Music's so good.
All right, sizzle reel time. So we'll just rapid fire run a couple of these off. Hot Wheels Unleashed, released on September 30th.
Surviving the Aftermath, holiday 2021.
Shin Megami Tensei 5 gets a shout out. Pre-orders begin today, and it's still releasing November 11th, 2021.
Still trying to sell that game outside of Japan. Then comes Wreckfest, which comes fall 2021.
Arcade Archives Pac-Man and Arcade Archives Exvius comes out on today. Xevious? Probably Xevious,
I would say
right?
Xevious, yeah. But you took a stab at it. I think it's impressive and admirable. And then Rune Factory 5 comes out March 22nd, 2022. Thus endeth the sizzle reel.
And then here's where Miyamoto interrupts to tell us some information on Super Mario movie, which we will.
We blacked out
Yep.
and we can't deal. Then we two more announcements to round out the show here. Announcements again. This is like
kind of like
just
reveals,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Splatoon 3 looking awesome in all of its like Splatoony glory. Mark, what are your big takeaways from seeing Splatoon 3 again?
So it looks completely crazy, and I'm 100% here for it. The turf wars, the little bit that we see, like some wild new abilities that I'm really excited about. But we in a kind of like change from my approach to Splatoon 2, the story mode here looks so exciting to me. Aesthetically, I've always loved the universe of Splatoon, and this just looks out of control.
Yeah. Well, it's the city that it takes place in. You know, we've spent a lot of time in Inkopolis, right? Which has the whole like Shibuya Square kind of thing going on. A big city, obviously, but in a very like sort of clean Times Square, touristy sort of aesthetic. This place is Splatsville is the name of the town. And they call out how it's like many generations of buildings all sort of encroaching on each other. It's got a real like walled city, buildings everywhere kind of aesthetic that you're right seems wild. It seems like there's so much happening. And like we see upside down cityscapes and stuff like that all over the place. It's really, really cool. And Splatoon is so like sharp and so imaginative. And again, just to, I said it earlier that Nintendo's so good at like establishing an aesthetic and just being like, this is it. This is the thing we're expressing. And the Splatoon aesthetic is so clear and so vibrant and so fun. And this looks to be more of that.
So, luckily, this also meant that we got the return of the Squid Research Lab and our Squid researcher.
Yeah.
He and basically he's just there to bring us joy, wearing his lab coat and sunglasses, because he just reiterates the things that we've seen. Basically, Splatsville, like Patrick said, is known as the City of Chaos. The Splatsville is surrounded by the Splatlands,
of course,
which he points out are inhabited by squids and octopuses. Buildings from several generations are crammed into the city. Turf wars are still a popular activity, but there are new main and special weapons. And then the story mode is known as Return of the Mammalians.
Which, okay, so are we saying that this is like a mashup of mammals and aliens?
That's how they were pronouncing
Mammalians?
it. Yeah, that's how they were pronouncing it. And, of course, in the world of Splatoon, we have only known of two mammals. Judd,
both cats,
and Little Judd,
right?
And one a clone of the other, I believe.
Judd is Little Judd is a clone of. It's a mini-me situation.
Yeah, I think so. So, but we see what are the Octa enemies names? Anyways, we see like furry ones of those.
Yeah.
We see the Squidling turn into like some sort of furry mammal creature. So mammals are back somehow.
Mammals are back, baby.
The lore is getting deeper.
Yeah.
The game is still coming out in 2022. The Squid researcher makes a 3 out of his body.
Perfect.
As we demand. And
a callback to the original Switch reveal presentation where he made a 2 out of his body. In a room full of people that were there to try and understand what they were invested in. So just glorious. Very excited for Splatoon 3. It's easy for me to forget about how fun Splatoon is, but to like see a new one in action. I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's just like joy and chaos personified.
Yeah. Perhaps continuing joy and chaos personified. Bayonetta 3 closes out the show. Another game again that we knew was coming and we were told not to think about it anymore. Mark, I'm glad that we set ourselves a goal of not talking about Bayonetta 3 anymore until it was revealed. And then like the next week it was revealed.
I feel like
we have a power now.
We're 2 for 2 because a similar pattern emerged after we said we weren't going to talk about Switch rumors anymore until the Switch was announced. And then just a few weeks later it was revealed.
So we now know that we have this responsibility and this power. Obviously, one influences the other. So the next time we declare that a topic is off limits until we finally get real information about it, means real information is incoming. Bayonetta 3 looks like a Bayonetta game, but with way bigger enemies and way bigger attacks.
Yeah, it has a total, to me, like kaiju thing going on.
Yeah.
Bayonetta is like controlling some different kaiju by like dancing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like all of her weapons summoned from her hair, right? And yeah, it's just giant monsters fighting each other, which like seems fun and fluid and kind of cool. I mean, Bayonetta is always going to be Bayonetta, right? But I felt like the way this trailer treated her as a character didn't feel as like lascivious and gross.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I noticed the same thing, and I think a lot of it is her redesign, like the new costumes. That they show in this trailer, anyways, are like Bayonetta's thing has always been being really sexy.
Yeah.
But I feel like this towed the line of being sexy without being, like kind of gross, in a way that I felt like the other like exploitative that I felt like Bayonetta was previously.
Well, like, and I think this is maybe what Bayonetta has always like tried to be. But like she reads as drag in this, right? That she is like a parody of gender expression. And instead of just like something to leer at.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't. You and I traditionally are not Bayonetta guys. We played the first two games and had like kind of a hard time getting into them. But this one looks kind of cool.
It does. It looks cool. I like the redesign. This game is coming out in 2022.
Right.
I mean, we have heard.
Add it to the pile.
We have heard literally nothing about this game since 2017.
Yes.
Nothing official, and so it has been a long time coming. And they kind of wink at that in the trailer.
Yeah.
Where she says that she's unfashionably late.
Right.
But the games have always had style, and that is definitely on show in this trailer.
Yeah, and the trailer ends with some mysterious dude with a sword showing up. We don't know enough about the series to know if that is someone.
I'm like, is this a new character? Is this somebody I should be familiar with? Is this
it a
Wesker?
Crossover with, is it Albert Wesker from the Resident Evil games? We don't know. It could be. Wesker ever carry a sword? He should. I'd play that game. And thus endeth the September 2021 Nintendo Direct. Mark, what'd you think?
I thought it was pretty good. When we were talking about rumors of a Nintendo Direct or the potential for a Nintendo Direct, I got it way wrong when I said that it would be a mini, but it feels like the spirit of, how we felt was true, where it's like, yeah, we got some new stuff in here, but there was no like earth-shattering revelation, but there was a lot of stuff that piqued my interest.
I mean, I think there is one earth-shattering revelation, and it's the voice cast of the Mario movie.
You're right.
It's just, it feels separate, right?
Yeah.
And obviously that's the part that gets like broken out on like Deadline and like, what those are. I had my phone turned off during the duration of the Nintendo Direct because you and I were going to get to it a little bit later, and I didn't want anyone texting me excitedly about whatever, especially if we were going to get a new Smash character. It just would have happened. Someone would have. And the most of the like buzz that I'm seeing from my friends now is about the Mario voice cast.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that's like the biggest like objective news thing to come out of this, but it's also the most disappointing part of it.
I'm actually glad that I have a year to deal with this information.
Yeah. True. Let us deal with it. But yeah, I mean, I will agree with what you said. There's a lot of cool and fun stuff in this. Movie news notwithstanding, Nintendo Switch Online, those are super cool developments. That Kirby game looks fun, and it doesn't take away any of the other fun stuff that's coming out, like Advance Wars.
Mere weeks from now at this point.
Well, no, Advance Wars.
I mean, everything that's coming the rest of the year this time.
Oh yeah. Okay, sure. But yeah, all very exciting. What did you think of the Nintendo Direct? Tell us. We want to know how you felt about it. Email us at nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com. Let us know. Mark, let's close this out. All right, that is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Remember, please rate, review, and follow us on Apple Podcasts, If you like the episode, you should share it on Facebook or Twitter, wherever you share stuff. Helps us out a lot. When you do, you can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Patrick_Ellers. Mark is at MKE Mitchell. And the show is at Nin Cart Society. We also have a Facebook page, which is just Nintendo Cartridge Society. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying thank you for listening.
Imagine a podcast. Now, imagine a musical. Now, imagine the two of them made 1 million babies. Well, you don't have to imagine it, because it's real, and it has a name. 1 million musicals. Each month, we bring you a brand new, original podcast musical featuring talent from across Broadway, films, and TV. You'll hear tales of spooky ghosts, Wild West shootouts, adventures on the high seas, and much, much more. 1 million musicals. Only a few 100,000 to go.
A Campfire Media podcast.
Campfire.